Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this month's webinar talk organized by the BCS Cheltenham and Gloucester branch. Here at the Gloucester and Cheltenham branch of BCS, we hold monthly webinar talks on different areas of computing and its effects on the wider society at large. Our webinars provide a platform for open and honest discussions, and we would encourage everyone to attend it. And if interested, please consider joining the British Computing Society via this link. So for our webinar talk for this month, we have with us Stuart, who is the academic course leader in cyber forensics at the University of Gloucestershire here in Cheltenham. So he's going to give us a talk on reality versus expectation in the field of cyber forensics. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Stuart.
And hopefully I'm on screen. Yep, there we are. I can see myself. Just let me get the screen share started to make sure we've got the right screen.
Yep, so, okay, there you go.
And we've got the right screens up.
Yes. I don't think okay, there you go.
I've done something right. That makes a change. Well, hello everybody. My name's Stuart Richards. As Thomas has just said, I'm the academic course leader for cyber forensics at the University of Gloucestershire. Today we're going to look at the perception of digital forensics, cyber forensics. Two terms are interchangeable, and the actual reality of what does happen. So fingers crossed. Somebody's saying they can't hear anything. Is that because my mic's not running? Can anybody else hear me? Is my mic running? Okay, so we got to start.
We can hear you fine, Stu.
Technology at its best, people. There we go. Okay, then. So let's have a little look at the presentation. And technology, yet again, at its best. Mine doesn't seem to want to run. Hold on. There we go. A little bit about me then. Everybody calls me Stu. I'm Stuart Richards. Like I said, I'm the academic course leader in cyber forensics or digital forensics, depending on which day you catch me on. A little bit about my background. I left school without a single qualification. I then progressed to work in electronic security, surveillance, electronic protection, working with the military, working for Her Majesty's government, looking after high value, high risk targets, pop stars, politicians, people under protection for their political views. Generally, I had fun protecting people and stopping them from being injured or attacked, and keeping an eye out for people who did that sort of thing. After 17 years of doing that, I decided I was getting a bit long in the tooth. I was getting a bit old for running around and jumping up and down ladders and climbing over walls. So I progressed to Gwent Police. In Gwent Police, I joined the unit called the JSIU, the Joint Scientific Investigation Unit, where I set up the mobile phone examination facility for Gwent Police. I also helped a number of other forces set up their initial mobile phone laboratories. Whilst I was at Gwent Police, I studied for my master's degree in computer forensics at the University of South Wales. And once I graduated, I asked for a pay rise. They wouldn't give me a pay rise, so I went to the private sector instead. But I was still doing work with police from the private sector. And then the opportunity came up for the position at Gloucester. I applied for it and I was very lucky to get it. And it's the best thing I've ever done. It really did make me who I am today. You can see from the picture there, that's who I used to be. That's who I used to be in my misspent youth. That's how I am now. Somewhat older, somewhat wiser, definitely heavier. But I like the fact that I can share my experience with the rest of the students that are coming into this field, so they understand that they'll learn from my mistakes. I think it's very important that we learn from other people's mistakes. It saves you having to make those mistakes, saves you money, saves you trouble. Okay. The way the TV looks at digital and cyber forensics, is it a fair representation of what we do? Well, the perfect answer to that is no. Obviously, if you look at things like CSI Miami, they get to drive around in Hummers, they all carry sidearms, they're very proficient at what they do. But if you go back to the real world, if you're really, really lucky, they give you a battered old Ford van to drive around in. The majority of the time, you don't even get that. You get a lift to where you go in with your rucksack and you get transported to the site and you do your bit and you come away. That being said, it's very rare for a digital investigator to actually arrive at site. 2 or 3 times a year, maybe, you get called out for that sort of event. So, what about the lab then? Now, on the TV, we see these amazing facilities. They have enormous space, enormous capacity. They have the fastest machines, they have the brightest individuals, they have every piece of equipment you could possibly want. Now, they even have a coffee machine that works, which I've never been known to happen. And you can guarantee that it's definitely not reality when you see somebody manages to find a fork. Because I can tell you now, if you talk to anybody that's worked with the police, the one thing that's most precious to you is a fork. You will never find a fork in a police canteen. I can guarantee that. So the real world is generally a dusty little office. If you're lucky, a couple of boxes of cables. If you're really lucky, 2 or 3 decent computers, 1 very mediocre laptop. Generally, I mean, we still have machines running on XP when I left, which was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. We still have machines running on XP. So you can tell that, yeah, that doesn't really wash with the real world. The best example ever of not the real world is CSI Las Vegas. When I was in Las Vegas, we happened to pop around and have a look at their CSI department. So on the TV, it's one of these beautiful, pristine offices with lots of chrome, lots of glass, lots of light, lots of everything you could possibly want. In reality, the Sheriff's Department, CSI department, was 2 porta cabins in a car park. Admittedly, they were lovely people and we had a lovely welcome there, but nevertheless, they weren't quite what you saw on the television. And again, let's look at what the sort of budget is for digital forensics in the UK. On the TV, money's not an object. They can have anything they want. You know, or we need to buy a nuclear reactor to power the computers. Yeah, go on, we'll have one of them. In the real world, boss, I need a new cable to recover this 1 model phone. I haven't got a cable for it. How much is it? 27 quid. Oh, well, get 3 quotes and see where you can buy it from. Again, anybody that's worked in sort of government industry, they'll understand that they expect you to get 3 quotes for everything you want to buy, which is great when it comes to cables. But what if it's the only company that makes that cable? What if it's the only company that produces that software? And I had this on every year. I'd have the same argument with somebody from the budget department saying, yeah, you ordered this software. Yes. Well, you haven't had 3 quotes for it. Well, no, only 1 company makes it. They're the only company that distribute it. It's their software. Yeah, but we need 3 quotes before we can pay for the license. No, I need to have it or I can't do any work. Well, we need 3 quotes. And I just send them an email saying, this is how it is. I'll stop working on May the 22nd because that's when the license runs out. After that, you haven't got any capability. Goodbye. And generally on May the 21st, I'd have a phone call saying, well, we've approved that purchase. But again, that's the reality of what you encounter in the real world. Now, there is one thing, I must stress this, really important. There is one thing that they do get right in these television shows. And I was amazed that they got it so accurate, but it is quite right. All cyber investigators, all digital forensic investigators are extremely good looking. I can vouch for that. I mean, you just need to look, but I can vouch that all digital investigators are extremely good looking. And just for an example, I've got a photograph of one of my colleagues who was based in South Wales. There she is. Yeah, you can tell that our industry attracts the brightest and most beautiful people, definitely. Okay, so let's have a look at a typical investigation and the reality of that investigation. I'm going to say at the crime scene because, you know, if you're really lucky, you might get to a 10, 3 or 4 in a year. If you're in, you know, in part of the unit. Occasionally you'll get to do more than that. I was dragged in a lot more than that because of the way we were developing the team. But generally, someone on the team, well, maybe 3 a year if they're lucky. And of course, on the TV, they go storming in, they grab everything they can, they get all the information, they get everything they possibly want. Well, we know that's not right. We know that's not the way it's done. Your primary concern is going to be your own safety, the safety of your colleagues, and then the integrity of the data. So the first thing you think of is it safe? Then you're going to think of, well, what other forensics need to be performed? The wet forensics. If you're not familiar with the term, wet forensics is the messy stuff. That would be the people that take the fingerprints, the people that take the blood spatter, the body fluids, you know, the ballistics people, all the other exciting jobs that you know we all wish we'd signed up for in the first place. So they come in and do their bit, and then if you're lucky, you'll be left to go and do your digital recovery bit. So you'll walk into the premises and you'll look for what you want. But you'll find that nobody's asked you what you need to do, what you need to make safe. Nobody's asked you your opinion on any of the search policies, on how a search should be conducted, what items need to be seized. None of that is done. You've got to shout loud, which is where I learned to shout loud, obviously. You've got to be forceful with your opinions. And of course, on the TV, they just walk in, they go, I'm having that, and everybody does everything for them. The recovery kit you'll be using, yeah, if you're lucky, you'll have a recovery kit of some sorts. Now, the general recovery kit, the kit that I always use, my go bag, my go to scene bag, was a great big rucksack. Well, it was the same rucksack as we used for public order kits. So when you were issued with your crash helmet, your body armor, your shield and everything, that was put into a big rucksack. So I collared one of these rucksacks and turned it into my forensic go bag. And in there I had a couple of forensic suits, lots of pairs of gloves, because you don't want to touch things when there's naughty people around. You don't know where they've been or what they've been doing. And then there'll be exhibit bags, the paperwork to support it, and maybe a laptop, you know, a decent laptop if we were doing something on site. And as many cables as you could possibly put your hands on, because you can never have enough cables or the right cables. And storage medium, that was the one that really caused an issue. Lots of people would say, well, you know, I need all the information on that device. Okay, well, I'm going to need a terabyte of storage. What's a terabyte? Yeah, so you had real problems with getting that information across. And of course, excuse me, time would be even more limited. You'd be told, yeah, go in, do your forensic stuff. Oh, by the way, we need you here in 15 minutes because we're all leaving then. Yeah, but you need you to secure the scene while I'm working. No, it's okay. We're all off. You can, you know, if you're not out in 15 minutes, tough luck, you're on your own. Which did happen occasionally. You got left the premises. Pubs was the big favourite. If there'd been a big incident at the pub and we were going in to recover CCTV, they drop you at the pub and say, oh, we'll pick you up in 3 hours' time. And you're sat in the middle of a pub that was, to say the least, police unfriendly. And everybody's looking at you, what are you doing then? Oh, I'm just recovering the CCTV of that fight last night. Oh, but if you get that, my mate's going to prison. Well, why? Because, you know, there was a fight and we saw what happened. So you've got to be very careful about how you go about your role. I didn't like being left anywhere. It's not a very nice place to be. And of course, if you look at the crime scene there in that photo, look at everything you've got to find. Look at all the information you've got to look through. And again, where do you start? What do you seize? What do you need? So, a digital investigator, a cyber investigator, a cyber forensic scientist, a digital forensic scientist. All these different titles are thrown around in different police forces. Digital investigator, digital media investigator, they seem to be more prominent lately. That seems to be the description of choice for what we do. What do you need to do? What are you actually employed to do? And that is to find information. But what it normally works as, when you arrive and you've gathered your information, you brought it back to the lab, you'll spend the majority of your working day doing paperwork. And then the remaining time you've got left, you'll be doing paperwork. And if you're really lucky, you'll be sending an extraction of data off in the background. And obviously, if you work smart, what you do is you start the extraction with the bare minimum of paperwork to get it done, and then you carry on with your paperwork. And hopefully, by the time the extraction is completed, you'll have finished the paperwork for that part of the job. Depending on how many devices, what type of device, how much equipment's involved, what you need to do. Which is why when you get people walk into the unit and they say, well, all you need to do is push a button. They don't realize everything else that goes with it, obviously. But you do all that paperwork just to even start the job. Then you do paperwork throughout the job. We all take contemporaneous notes of the examination, so that somebody else following behind could perform the same examination and hopefully get the same results. That's the way we justify our forensic procedure. That's what makes it the science that it allegedly is. And then the really important part of a digital investigator's job is to report on that data. It doesn't take a great deal of time to teach somebody how to get the information out of a mobile phone. It doesn't take a great deal of time to show somebody how to extract data from a hard drive on a computer. But making sense of that data, showing people what you've recovered, explaining how it got there, that's the role that we as digital investigators need to take on. And in the TV world, they never do that. They just tell somebody, oh, look, I found out he's guilty. There we are. And, you know, at the end of 90 minutes, he's in prison. It really doesn't work that way. Let's have a look at some of this paperwork. Now, chain of custody paperwork is really important. If you're familiar with the term chain of custody, it's about proving every step of the way what you've done. And it starts with the evidence itself. And you see from the evidence bag there, this was an example of a device. The piece of red cardboard is a sat nav because I didn't have a spare sat nav available. But you can look at that information on that bag and prove that that's the item you've picked up. It says on there a black dash cam. They were actually shown a black dash cam, and it was on the top shelf to the right of the door. That's the address, which they haven't put on there, so this bag wasn't quite precise enough. But this is information. It's got an individual identifier on there. It's called Charlie Whiskey Bravo 1. That's the exhibit number they've given it, the individual reference that links back to that device. So wherever that device goes, there should be a record of it and who's actually had it in their hands. And if you look at this example, you can see that it was passed between some people. If we can look, this individual had it at this date, then it was passed to this individual, then it was passed to this individual who didn't date it, then it was passed to this individual, then it was passed to this individual, then it was passed to this individual. There's a chain, there's an evidential chain on the bag itself. There'll also be a paper log somewhere alongside it that'll keep that information stored in a way that can be used to prove where that evidence was. So there's the evidential log. This is the evidence we've got. There's a movement log. Where's it been? Who's had it? Has it been transported from the scene by somebody? Has it been put in the store? Has it been removed from the store? Has it been sent to an external examiner? Has it been taken to another unit? Has somebody else looked at it for fingerprints? Has it been taken in to show somebody an interview? All that information is there. And the other paperwork that needs to go with it, the work order, the submission form, the instructions. You need to look at that form to make sure that you actually can look at that device. So you've got authority. And then when you look at the forms, you look at things like, is that actually achievable? You know, I want every bit of information out of this phone. No problem at all. But if you want to look through 680,000 bits of information, I can do that for you quite easily. You're going to spend a week just looking at the text messages. You know, I want all the CCTV for all 20 cameras in the post office for the last month. My favorite one of them ever was we were working on a counter-terrorism job, and I was sent to the Severn Bridge to get their entire CCTV for the month. And I protested. I said, can't be done. They said, no, you go in, you take whatever you need, you go and do it. Okay, I'm telling you it can't be done. No, you'll go and do it. I said, okay. So I drove to the Severn Bridge, spoke to the people who were in charge of their CCTV system. I said, what sort of storage are you using? He said, oh, well, there's not a lot. There's only about 60 terabytes of data. I said, oh, great. How do you export that? He said, onto USBs. And bear in mind, this is when the biggest USB you can get your hands on was about 8 gig. So I rang back in. I said, I can get this data out for you. Yeah. I said, I was going to pay the overtime. He said, what overtime? So it was going to take me, at the conservative estimate, 41 days to recover all this data. And he went, the officer in charge of it, what? I said, yeah, 41 days. That's working 12-hour days, mind. Okay. I said, and then somebody's got to watch it. Okay. Just get the CCTV from Wednesday afternoon then. And you'll find that you need to be able to make these arguments before you go into the field. And of course, in TV land, they just push a button and instantly the data they need is available in front of them. They logged into the systems and up it comes. Another thing they never do in TV land is they look at triage in the evidence. Triage being a method of figuring out which is the most important one, which is going to be the easiest job or the most effective job or the most important job. And a general triage system, and this description here is very general, is jobs that need to be done immediately. So missing kids, kidnap, possible violence, counter-terrorism, that sort of thing. Well, I can look at your phone straight away. Yeah, I'll do that for you. Yeah, I'll definitely do that for you if that's what you want. And then you get the jobs we have them done sooner rather than later. So that could be, I don't know, a violent assault where somebody's already in custody, but he's locked up, he's not coming back out. Then you get the later jobs, which are, well, is it a theft? Is there evidence of something going on? Is there messages we need to use in the case? And then my favorites are the not at alls, where they come in and say, yeah, we want this text message on Facebook that says he's called her fat. Why do you need to download a phone for that? As he said he was in? Well, yeah, just take a photocopy of the screen. Yeah, but we want to have a download of the phone. But what do you want to download of the phone for? We want all the information. Well, no, you don't, because you want to find out whether he called her fat or not. Oh, right. And those tended to get binned straight away. We had a system where the submission form would come in, you looked at the different columns and different boxes. It had a hidden matrix in the background that gave us a score. And if the score wasn't above a certain level, it didn't get done at all. We just got refused as a submission. TV world, oh yeah, I can look at that phone straight away because I've got no other work to do. And they never have, have they? They're always available to do everything. And when you look at an examination of a mobile device, and I'll stick with mobiles because that's really my field of expertise. I can do computers, but mobiles is where I really like to play. The acquisition of a mobile device. I tried this earlier on. I plugged in a 32 gig USB using good old FTK Imager, which is a wonderful piece of software. If you're not familiar with it, it's really worth looking at. I plugged it in and it told me it's going to be about 20 minutes. And I thought, that's okay, 32 gig, 20 minutes. But that's using the USB. A mobile phone doesn't talk as quickly. If you're looking at acquiring a mobile phone, you're looking at a lot longer. The longest I ever spent acquiring a mobile phone, this was again before the software progressed, I spent 19 hours acquiring an Android mobile phone. And when I did acquire it, there wasn't really that much information in there. It took 19 hours for it to download. So then you process that information. You load it into whatever software you're going to use to analyze it. And again, here I'm using FTK. Again, another wonderful piece of software if you've got access to it. There's free software such as Autopsy. Again, a brilliant bit of software, especially because it's free. But you can use that as an analysis tool as well. But it takes time just to build the case, to load the information in. So to put a 32 gig into the FTK setup took about 10 to 15 minutes. So I imaged it first to make sure I didn't corrupt it, and then I loaded the image into the system. And we're already, what, 35 minutes in? And I haven't even looked at anything yet. Then we start to analyze it. And we look through that data. And again, with this USB, I was looking at what files are in there, what information's in there, where are the text files, where are the documents, where are the images. Can I show this Excel sheet's been modified? Where's the deleted files? All of the stuff that as a forensic examiner, a digital forensic examiner, we're looking for that information to build our case, to add value to what we're doing. And it can take days to do that, literally take days. And that's just doing a small device. Imagine doing that with 5 or 6 computers, each one with a terabytes worth of data on that. You can see where, again, TV doesn't match reality. Because in TV, 15 minutes in, they go, you know, oh, I'll examine this computer. After the ad break, I've examined this computer and I found all this information. I wish we had ad breaks in real life. They would help, wouldn't they? And then comes the really difficult part, the reporting on it. Now, again, in TV world, they just say, yep, he's guilty. Well, how do you know he's guilty? Well, if you look at this file, it was created on this date, and it's got metadata that shows that he was the author, and it shows it was modified on this date, and it shows that it was transferred to this USB on this date. You need to explain that to somebody. And with the best will in the world, the people you're explaining it to are dumb. And I don't mean that in any way offensively, because they don't need to be experts. They don't need to be like us. We're different. We understand computers. We understand the way everything works. We understand how things talk to each other. We understand how things are stored. But try and explain something simple like a file allocation table, or you know, master boot record, or Android databases. Try to explain that to somebody who doesn't understand. All they know is they pick their phone up and they make a phone call on it, or they send pictures, or they look at videos. So you need to put that report together, and that report's got to be accurate. It's got to be concise. It's got to explain those important technical terms for people that don't understand. And then somebody's going to check it and say, well, hold on, I don't agree with that. So there could be an argument over your report. And then you end up having to go to court and give an expert witness report. And that's an entire another level of stress, worry, and work. More work again. Again, TV people, yeah, he's guilty. They stand up, the judge says, is he guilty? Oh yeah, he's guilty. Well, it's jury's job. No, it's American TV, we can say he's guilty. Okay. So, on TV then, they're multi-skilled investigators. I love the fact that they'll walk into a room, I mean, they jump out of a very fast car, blue lights all over it. They pull a firearm off their side and hold somebody at gunpoint. They cuff him, they Miranderize him or read them their rights. Which is, great, fair enough if that's what you want to do. And then they walk in and go, oh, we'll have fingerprints on them. What? Yeah, no, yeah, can you see the fingerprints on them? Look at them. Oh yeah, they're fingerprints. They are definitely. Oh, there is fingerprints. And in one of the CSI episodes, they actually do that. They look at it and go, oh no, these fingerprints are all the girls. Well, I know fingerprint experts, and to get an opinion like that out of them normally takes 3 or 4 days. And lots of cups of coffee and copious quantities of donuts. That's another thing they get right. Do love coffee and donuts. They're experts in ballistics. They tell you what type of gun it was, where it was fired from. Again, I've got a former neighbour of mine, actually, who's a ballistics expert, and she'll tell you that, okay, the 6 years she spent in university, you could do that in 10 minutes. She doesn't really need to do all that training. She doesn't have a clue about digital forensics. She doesn't want to. All she's concerned about is things that go bang, and she's very good at things that go bang. CCTV systems just plays pictures, doesn't it? But what happens when you can't get those pictures out of it? Well, as digital investigators, we kind of know where we are with that, because CCTV is just a camera system. It's just a video system that records onto a hard drive. It's just digital data. We can work with that. But it is a specialist field. CCTV files are odd. There's no other way of putting it. A lot of these systems you get that are made in somebody's garden shed in Korea, you don't even know how to play the video back when you've got them. So you have to take the entire unit and then plug it in, and then how do you download the information? How do you prove the information? One of the weirdest quirks of the CCTV system I've seen, it was a company called Vista, and if you took the hard drive out of the machine and plugged it into another hard drive, I plugged another hard drive into it, or plugged it into another circuit board, it would wipe the drive because it didn't have the same MAC address. That was very frightening the first time it happened, and you quickly learned not to make that mistake again. Again, mobile devices, well, that definitely is a specialist field. I think it should be a totally independent field, because mobile devices are so much more diverse than working with computers. And, you know, computer forensics, yes. Again, my favorite is when you see 3 people typing on the same keyboard, trying to what was the last one I saw? They were going to DDoS the attacker and get his IRP, and there was all sorts of stuff going on. You just read buzzwords off a card there. You have no idea what's going on. As you can see, they're all interested in everything. The ballistics one is something I've got a bit of interest in, because my former neighbour, she was a ballistics expert, and I used to love having conversations with her about it. There is a common skill set. All digital examiners have a common skill set. We understand how things work. We know how to put things together. We know how to pull computers apart. We know how to pull phones apart. We do that. We know how to put broken things together. We can tell if something's broken. We can tell if something's missing. You know, there's no hard drive in this computer. Yeah. Yeah, we all know how to write the report. Well, sort of. And we can stand up and say, yeah, I'm an expert. I understand how a computer works. I understand how a mobile phone works. And that's something that you see in our common skill set. The TV skill set, they're so multi-skilled. I just wish I had the time to have all that information in my memory. So computer examiners tend to work at a module level. They know it. You can pull a computer apart. So you know where the drive is, you know where the memory is, you know if there's a solid state drive in there, you know if there's a USB plugged into it. And if you've got a bit more knowledge, you can work at component level. So, oh, this drive's faulty. Oh, that's because the power supply is faulty. Let me change the power supply. Oh, this memory's not plugged in properly. All simple stuff, but nevertheless, it's a specific skill set that you gain from experience. Mobile phones, at a basic level, we can identify components. Oh, that's a SIM card, that's a memory card, that's a phone. Yeah, very useful to be able to identify a phone. On one occasion, when I was stationed in Newport in South Wales, somebody brought in a remote control for a TV and said, Stu, can you get a text messages off this for me? Yeah, that cost him a lot of donuts, that did. He was a laughing stock for weeks. But, you know, these things happen. At a more advanced level, you start looking at things like taking screens apart and putting new screens on. Replacing batteries is fairly straightforward, unless it's in water, and then they're very dangerous. And finally, the sort of high echelon digital mobile phone examiners do something called a chip off, where they actually take the memory chips off the phone. Kev Mansell's doing a talk for one of the groups in a couple of weeks, this week sometime, I think. He's really good at this. If you ever get to see Kev Mansell doing a demonstration, it's well worth going to. CCTV then, well, they're kind of computer examiners really, aren't they? Kind of computer. But you still need to know what the bits and pieces are and what they do. And things like, how do you download that information? How do you talk to the circuit board? Yeah? It's definitely a different skill set to a computer examiner, but a very similar skill set to a computer examiner. It's like, I suppose, the difference between working on a diesel engine and working on a petrol engine. They kind of do the same thing, but you've got to know what you're doing to make them work. Especially when it comes to things like cloud storage and remote access and all the other fun stuff that you encounter nowadays. Okay, being an expert witness, now that's real fun. An expert witness stands up and tells you what he knows, tells you what he thinks you should know, tells you what is important to you. They've got to be credible. You've got to listen to them and believe them. Sometimes they need to be charismatic so that people will listen to them and will believe them. They need to be impartial. Nobody goes up and says, oh yeah, he's guilty. We stand up and we give evidence to show the facts. This is what I found in this device. This is what I found on this computer. This text message was sent from this mobile phone. Yeah, you need to be able to explain how these things work to them, the normal people, those gifted people that don't have the problems that we do in life of looking at things and understanding how they work. They just know it works or it doesn't work. They don't understand everything else that goes on, which is why we tend to stress over things, isn't it? As examiners, we tend to stress over these things. Report writing is definitely an acquired skill. You can be taught how to write the report in many different ways, all of which could be correct at one time or another. But you need to figure out what report you need, when you need to put certain content in. But it's there because it pays your bills. If you're an independent forensic examiner, this is where your money comes from. It's getting that information together, proving that something was missed, proving that something hadn't been looked at, finding that extra evidence that isn't there in somebody else's case. The divorce case where you find the documents that show he's been hiding money away. You find the documents that show that she was cheating. All that information is what brings you the money. It's what pays your bills. But it takes time. An average report, a simple report of around 3,000 words could take anything up to 2 weeks to write efficiently and properly, and so nobody can pick holes in it. Generally, you have about 3 or 4 days to write a report. Your career depends on it, yeah. If you get it wrong, and you stand up in court and you give wrong evidence, and you're found to be wrong, there's your credibility gone. Nobody remembers how many times you were successful, how many times you proved a point. Everyone will remember that major mistake you made. And I've got one former colleague who's forever known for the mistake he made. Obviously, I'm not going to mention it on here, but it became his nickname in the end. And nobody wants to have a nickname that brings up their mistakes, do they? Let's be fair. It's meant affectionately, but nevertheless, you'll never forget that. Even when he retired, it was on his retirement cake. So let's sum it up then. The expectation and the reality. Well, in the expectation, it's immediate results. Well, we know in the real world, it takes time, and more time, and a bit more time, and then some more time again, and then maybe you're halfway there. Again, on TV, everyone can do it. No, you need a specialist who understands that piece of equipment. You need a specialist who understands how it works. You really need to understand what you're doing. Money's no object. Yeah, well, we know that's not true, don't we? Literally every penny counts. My favorite was if you ordered something that was over £1,000, then it had to go before panel. If you ordered something that was under £1,000, it didn't. So many a time I ordered something that was £998, and then ordered another one that was another £650 to bring it up to the amount that we actually needed. I'm sure that goes on in a lot of organisations. I'm not really letting the cat out of the bag there. We all know that goes on. Everything is recoverable. No, it's not. You get what you get. Sometimes we find deleted content. Sometimes we find lost files. Sometimes we recover those pictures for somebody. A while back, I did a freelance job for somebody who was a photographer, and he'd lost everything on his hard drive. He thought hard drive wasn't working. He couldn't get any images off it. He brought it to me. And I said, "What's on you?" He said, "Oh, wedding photos." And I said, "Where's your backup?" He said, "I haven't got one." I thought, "Oh, here's an opportunity." I said, "Go on then, 10 pence an image." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, every photo I get back that you want, 10 pence. You went, "You sure?" I said, "Yep, 10 pence." He said, "Oh, yeah, definitely." Quite a few thousand pictures later, I think he wished he'd negotiated with me. But nevertheless, I cut him a break in the end. I didn't charge him too much. But it shows that there's opportunities even in freelance world of making money from the skill set that we have. And it was nice to be able to say, "Oh look, yeah, these people can have their wedding photos now." Yeah, I'm just hoping he does it again because it's so easy. When he dropped it on, he actually dropped the hard drive and the power needed to come off inside. We're going to tell him that. The job is sexy. Nope, the job's not sexy at all. The only thing sexy are the people that do it. I just need to point that out again. If you are good looking like myself, then this is definitely the field you should be in. I mean, those who are less attractive tend to go into cybersecurity, like Thomas. But most of us, sorry Tom, but most of us tend to go into a reasonable field like this. Okay, that's me. Has anybody got any questions? I can see there's some questions already in the question log. So I'll have a quick look at that. And then if you want to add some more, we'll talk our way through it. I'm not quite sure how this works now because I'm not really familiar with this broadcast setup, but I think I'm okay. So we'll have a look at questions. If anybody wants to interject from the management team to tell me if I'm doing the right thing, I'd be grateful. Is this the way it should go, Thomas? Is this the way, Phil? Is this the way it should go? Just give me a thumbs up if I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay.
If you can read the questions yourself, or would you like somebody to read the questions for you?
No, I'll go through. I've got them in front of me. I just slide them to a screen so I'm not looking sideways. I hate doing that looking sideways bit when you're talking to people. Okay, who have we got on here then? Right, so we had the issues initially with audio. That was fixed. Good. Oh, here we go. One from, a name I recognize there, James. One of my current students, soon to be one of my ex-students. Not because I'm throwing him out, but because he's due to graduate shortly if he keeps up the good work. How often do police officers use cyber kiosks to extract data from phones? Does that cause problems with the integrity of data? Okay, cyber kiosks are something that's come recently into the policing world. They're basically little workstations that are automated to recover data from mobile phones. Make life so much easier, means there's a quick throughput. If you're only after a couple of text messages, if you're looking for one picture, nice, straightforward, easy to use. When they brought them into Gwent, I was very against it because of, as James has mentioned there, data integrity, evidential chain, and everything else that went with it. But we started writing up policies and procedures for it. Then I jumped ship. But the people that were left behind to keep rowing after me, they worked on the policies and procedures, and they have it's an efficient system they've got. So the cyber kiosks is a little terminal that's mounted normally in the custody unit, because normally you're bringing somebody into custody anyway, and you can plug a phone in and do a brief extraction, a targeted extraction. I only want text messages chunk, and it'll bring that information out. It all depends on the complexity of the case, what you need to do. And obviously, the more complex the case, the more detailed the examination, then you should really pass it on to and I'll use the brackets, your qualified examiner to look at it. The chip off thing, no, James, I'll send you a link to it, though. I've got a link to that. Actually, I don't know if you got chip off on it, but it's Thursday night, guys. I'll send you a link to that, don't worry about it. Okay, here we go. How much more difficult does full and or file level encryption make your job? Oh boy. It makes it very difficult sometimes. Depending on the device, Android mobile phones will go with, because that's a nice, easy one to look at. Some of the earlier Galaxies, before they had full disk encryption, were really straightforward. Plug them in, push a button, and comes the information. Nowadays, they're a bit more complex, but there are ways of bypassing the bootloader for the system, bypassing the encryption. I don't claim to be clever enough to have done that. It was all written by the people that developed the software for us, and for us, I mean the community. There's a company called Celebrite, based in Israel, who are absolutely superb at hacking phones and make some wonderful phone extraction equipment. The UFED phone extraction equipment is amazing. MSAB, based out of Sweden, make the XRY phone system and the examine system. Again, really powerful tools. And there's lots of open source and freely available stuff out there. There's even a Ubuntu build called, I think it's called Santuku, which has got a lot of mobile tools in it. So yes, it does make life difficult, but it doesn't make life impossible. So don't think you can hide behind an encrypted device or an encrypted file. At the end of the day, all we need to do is find the password. Sometimes it's more difficult than others, but yeah, it can be done. And who's our next one? Rachel. Ooh, cyber developments in the next 5 years. I can foresee artificial intelligence being used to probe devices, finding ways of probing mobile phones, computers, etc. I can see AI being trained to, and it has been trained to look for indecent images, but also being trained to look for bad guys, full stop. You hear the expression of coppers' nose, where they know something's not right. They have a sniff now. Yeah, I'm gonna pull that car over. I don't like the look of it. Something you can't actually say what's caused that you to want to do it, but you know something's wrong. I can see AI being developed. It'll have a copper's nose. It'll look for things. It doesn't really, there's something not right about the way this guy's talking to this person in this chat room. There's something not quite right about these photographs. Why has he got these bank details on his phone or on his computer? That's one thing I can see in cyber forensics, definitely. Using cyber forensic, again, artificial intelligence is where it's going, definitely. But using machine learning to look at sort of things like CCTV systems, to advanced image recognition, threat detection. There was a system a couple of years ago that they put on the London Underground. They looked at people movement from a CCTV point of view, and if suddenly there was a rush of people, it would flag up to say, "Oh, there's something wrong here. There's lots of people running in this direction. What's going on?" It even got to the stage where it could actually detect the punch being thrown. I can see developments in that, definitely. I can see that we will move away from the simple stuff. The simple stuff will be automated, and the important stuff will become very concentrated. You will work very deeply on that stuff. What we got on here? Anthony has left. Okay, Anthony, well, if you were still here, I'm sure somebody else would be interested in this. Are there any good tutorials to work through a sample forensic exercise to demonstrate how much recoverable information there is on my phone or laptop? Yes, there are hundreds. And a simple Google search will bring up sample forensic exercises. I would recommend you download Autopsy because it's free and it's a nice, powerful tool. It's really good for looking at smaller devices, USBs, the memory card of your phone. To do a phone itself, there are some free softwares available, but the problem we have with free software is it tends to work on older devices. Once iOS starts updating to its next version, it generally tends to block a lot of stuff. If you've got old iPhones that haven't been updated, they're a doddle. You can actually get, you know, an iPhone's a really easy phone to get into, provided it hasn't been updated. Anything sort of before iOS 9, anything lower than that is an absolute doddle to work with. After that, they start getting a little more complicated. You need more powerful tools. But the early ones are just, you know, it is literally plug and play. Oh, have you done any jobs involving natural language processing? Works well in academia, but can it work in practical situations? From Laurie. Oh, I like that one. That's something to definitely start the old brain thinking. Natural language processing, do you make sense of the words that are used? We search for keywords. You know, as a forensic examiner, the system's designed to look for keywords. You know, you look for gun, knife, you know, piece. You look for bullet. You look for ammo. You look for all those sort of words, and you have word lists already put together. Every year we update the drugs word list because the kids, if you're down with the kids, you know all the terms for the drugs. But, you know, the first time I came across a phone where they were trying to sell T-shirts, I thought, well, what are they selling T-shirts for? But apparently that's another drug slang term that was quite common in Newport for a while. So yeah, we work off a list of words, but that's kind of what natural language processing does in a much more advanced way. Obviously, it looks at what's there. I'd like to think that the way that computing power is progressing and the way computing knowledge is progressing, yes, it's going to be something that will work for us, definitely. Definitely something that will work for us. My most memorable case. Oh, Ian. All depends on memorable. One or two really funny ones, one or two absolutely horrific ones. Yeah. The funny ones, definitely, they're always a giggle. When you find pictures of people doing things you didn't think people would do, they're always a laugh. I think my best one was we dealt with a case where a young lad had been found. He'd been murdered, he'd been set on fire. It was a horrible, horrible job. And there was a mobile phone still in his pocket. And they got the mobile phone to me and they said, Steve, what can you do with this? I said, well, it's melted, I'll see what I can do. And I took it into the lab, got a scalpel out, started carving the bits of plastic off it, looking to see what we could find, and eventually managed to get it through. And, oh, I can see the SIM card. Great. Okay, the SIM card's still reasonably intact. It's a bit warped, but it's still there. So I took the SIM card out, and this is no word of a lie, I used blue tack, some paper clips, some dressmaker's pins, some wires, a bit of solder, a lot of swearing, an awful lot of swearing. And I managed to create a method of connecting to that SIM card. Once we got the SIM card connected to the computer, I could then analyze the SIM card. And from that, I got the ICC ID, the identifier of that SIM card, the IMSI, which is the number relating to the mobile phone number. I could give that information to my colleagues, and they used that to track down the last phone calls that was made, where those phone calls were made, who he spoke to. And luckily, because it was from an old, I hate to use the term in this case, but an old burner phone, we were lucky there was a lot of contacts saved on the SIM. And we found a lot of the contact details, mobile numbers, names off the SIM card. That went on to lead to an organised crime group. Only a small organised crime group, but a very violent organised crime group, and they murdered this guy because he wasn't playing their game. But we put quite a few of them away, all down to that burned phone. I think that was my best good luck story. So, guys, do we have any more questions? It looks like it's coming to the end of our time. See something flashing away. Yes, in fact, I've gone way over time. I'm terribly sorry, but when I get excited, I tend to gabble on a little bit. Any of my former students will tell you that. Okay. Also,
You're not over time,
right?
Stuart.
What's that, Phil?
Stuart, you're not over time.
Aren't, according to this, I'm over time. No, I'm not over time. Oh, that's good. I saw the message creeping up and I thought it was saying I was over time. I'm terribly, in that case, we can gabble on a bit more. What else have we got?
Can I ask you a question?
Of course you may.
I'm interested in, you've mentioned this several times in your talk about evidential integrity. I would imagine this is extremely important. For example, you're copying, you don't presumably operate directly on the devices, you presumably copy the data at some stage. How do you preserve the evidential integrity so that you'll actually convince a judge that he can believe the evidence?
Okay, now there's two streams to that question, actually. The first one is good old-fashioned computers, yeah? So with a good old-fashioned computer, I believe the technical term is we rip the hard drive out of it. Yeah. We take it apart, we get the hard drive out, and then we make a bit-for-bit copy of that hard drive. So using software to prevent it being written to, we use either a hardware write blocker or software write blockers that prevents any information being written to that original drive. We make a bit-for-bit copy. So every 1 and 0 that's in there comes onto our target drive. Everything comes onto where we want to store that information. And whether that's just a file on your computer or actually a physical drive that you want to put it onto, so you've got a physical copy of it. Normally, we just take a copy over and we create something called an E01 file, an evidential file. And that is all the 1s and 0s that are in that device packed into a file, so we can then load them into any of the forensic packages to look at that evidence. Now, the important bit that comes is once we create that E01 file, we also get a hash value of the file. I'm sure pretty much everybody on here is computer literate, I hope. So you understand the value of an MD5 hash, simple mathematical formula across all of the data, and it gives you a value, a string of characters. And that string of characters is then your fingerprint for that device. It's the integrity of all the information it contains. It gives you that integrity of data. And that's what we take through with us then for continuity of evidence, is we take that hash value, that fingerprint that shows all is well. Now what we tend to do is create a master copy of the data and then some working copies of the data. The master copy goes into an evidence bag, is sealed up, and we don't touch that unless something goes wrong. The working copies, you can create as many as you want, and you know, as a rule of thumb, we normally make 2 or 3 anyway. So that data can be shared around the office if other individuals want to work with it, or you can give a copy to the defence team if they want a copy, or you know, if another department's interested for some reason, or another force, we can give copies of those working copies of that evidence we've created. So that's how we keep evidential integrity on the source data. And then, of course, anything that we find or we produce or we pull out of a report, that becomes an evidence exhibit as well. And that needs to be tracked in the same manner. So if I find a file containing images of penguins, and penguins are illegal at the moment, then I could say, well, yeah, I found file, you know, called Pretty Pictures. This I can exhibit as SDR1. And then you produce a copy of that file for somebody to look at. Now that's the traditional good old-fashioned pull-apart computer route. It's a bit different when it comes to mobile phones, because obviously you need to power the device up to talk to it. So when we perform an extraction of a mobile phone, you will get a hash value for that extraction. But that hash value is only valid for the extraction at that point, because obviously somebody else was to examine the phone, then the date's going to change in it, or you know, even if it's been powered down, when they power it back up, because its internal clock is still ringing, the date will have changed. So that could cause a problem for us as well. And the most important thing is you need to be able to explain that in court. Well, yes, because when you powered the phone down, the clock kept ticking away inside. So when I powered it back up, when I examined it the second time, it'd be a different value. Normally with phone extractions, you plug it into the extraction system, you perform whatever little tricks you need to get it to work. And one of my favorite favorite tricks. I still to this day don't know how the guy that discovered it, but there used to be a phone called a Nokia Lumia 710. I don't know if anybody ever owned one of these horrible phones, but they were a terrible phone. And if you try to extract data from that using the standard extraction tools that we did, it would just thumb its nose at you and say, no, you're not having nothing. It really wouldn't talk to you. And then one day I received an email from a colleague in another force. He said, Nokia Lumia 710, yeah, take the battery out of it, put a power supply on it and set it to 3.72 volts. I said, what? So I rang him straight away. I said, what's going on here? He said, just do that. You set it to that voltage and you can extract everything out of it. So I tried it, and yeah, it did. It worked. It turns out that one of the chips involved in that phone, if you set it to that voltage, it thought it was in engineering mode and it removed security functions on it. So it allowed you to extract the phone, which was, great. They don't make the phone anymore, which you very rarely come across one now, so it's no use to anybody now. But nevertheless, at the time, it was absolutely life changing for us because we could get into these phones that we could never get into before. It's the equivalent of standing on one leg in a bowl full of custard to see if you can get the information out of it. But it worked. And again, that's why in the forensic community, especially the mobile forensic community, everybody shares information, everybody shares the ideas, everybody shares their successes and their failures. Whatever you do, don't change the SIM card in a Samsung 2121B, I think it is. Because it wipes the details on the SIM card. It wipes the call registers when you put the SIM card in. Somebody found that out and we knew about it. On a Samsung mobile phone, if you want to check the serial number, or the IMEI as we call them, if you press *#06# on the keyboard, it shows you the serial number, and it does that on most mobile phones. But if you did it on early model Samsungs, it would wipe the call register. These are just simple little things that we learned as we go along. So yeah, evidential integrity is about proving that the information is what it is and hasn't been changed. And the best way to prove that is paperwork. Contemporaneous notes. I managed to say that. Normally I can never get that word out, but contemporaneous notes, making notes as you go along, is your best friend. It covers everything you do. It shows that you've been following rules and regulations, shows you've been following procedures you need to. And that's something we teach on the course at the university, is the importance of contemporaneous notes. Any more for any more. Here we go. How do we see COVID affecting your job? Well, let's see. COVID means you're locked in an office on your own doing your job. Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect the job much. The university side of it, obviously, we're now looking at more remote teaching, more of a shared experience. How do we access equipment? How do we access software? And that's been very challenging. Definitely been very challenging over the last year. Some of the students on the course have really helped us to develop the way that we teach remotely. And that's something that any educators on you should really be aware of, the fact that it's evolving. Education is definitely evolving because of what COVID has done to us all. I think it's for the better, actually. It does make for a more diverse and rounded method of teaching. But nevertheless, it has impacted in a way. But as for a forensic examiner's job, it hasn't really impacted us that much, because we tend to be loners anyway. We tend to be stuck in our office and left to get on with things. Yeah, somebody else asking about the chip off. As soon as I find the link, I've got a list of everybody that was on the chat, and I obviously can see your name on you now. And I'm obviously going to pronounce that incorrectly if I try. So I say it kind of looks like Kieran to me, but with a surname like that, I'm guessing it's about Irish extraction. So maybe it's not quite Kieran, but I'll go with Kieran. If it's not, I apologise profusely. But there we are. I tried. Yeah, I'll make sure the link gets to you as soon as I find it. It's there somewhere. It's another one of these sessions, so it should be there. What's the else? Thiago's put something up. Mac forensics are very challenging. I believe that is the understatement of the year. That's like saying COVID was a bit of a cold. Yeah. Mac forensics is a very specific, very niche level of forensics. The biggest problem with Mac forensics is that Macs are so well made. To actually get in there and get any information on them, you've really got to pull them apart with heat guns, etc., or use software that interacts with a live machine. There's a wonderful piece of software called Macquisition, which is really good at pulling information out of Macs. It's hideously expensive. If you're fortunate enough to get hold of a copy of it, it's pretty much a speedy tool for recovering information from Macs. I've done a little bit of Mac forensics, and I can say, hand on heart, I absolutely hate it. Maybe it's because I'm very familiar with the Windows system. Maybe it's because I'm more inclined towards mobile phones. But yeah, Mac forensics is something that is very challenging, and hopefully it'll get easier as more resources are pushed towards it. But as we all know, they go where the best bang for buck is, where they get the best value for money. And there are so many Windows systems out there that people tend to concentrate on that. The companies like Black Bag that are working on Mac forensics charge a fortune because they know they can. I just wish I had the time and money to experiment more with it, but there we are. Any more questions? Please. It's all gone very quiet. Have I scared people off? Okay, there's a question out to everybody out there then. Who would rather work in the forensics industry, or rather than working in, say, database management or security? Why? Who would go for one over the other? Anybody got any opinions on why they'd want to do that? It's nice to see why people are driven to certain sectors. Anybody? Well, I tell you what, Thomas is out there. Thomas, why did you choose security rather than forensics?
Good question, Stu. So one of the key reasons that I chose was because I wanted to look at from the offensive side of things, like rather than trying to figure out what happened after post-mortem, so to say. I figured that by attacking, I was more interested in the attacking side of it.
So we take it that Thomas wanted to be the doorman. He wanted to be the bouncer. He wanted to stop the trouble before it started.
There you go.
There we are. Yeah.
I call it the digital, the electronic version of being James Bond, minus the Bentley, of course, for now.
Of course, yeah. Whereas me, I always want to be Batman. I wanted to find the bad guys and punish them. I wanted to make sure we could find out what was going on. And we go in after Thomas has made a mistake, after they got past Thomas. The forensics team are like the coroners. We go in there, we find out what went wrong. We tell Thomas how to do his job properly next time, and we go after the people that did it. But we work hand in glove. I mean, it's really important that you realise that forensics is just one of the disciplines in computing that relies on everybody else. You need to rely on security to provide you with information. You need to rely on the IT department just to give you access to some of this stuff. What if you need to get into a server? What if you need to get information out of a server? Well, you need somebody that understands networks. You need to find. We never work totally independently. A forensic examiner always needs to understand how security works, how IT works in general. And that goes for every field that we work in, guys. And you understand, as Thomas said, the security team, yeah, they need to stop things happening, but when it goes wrong, somebody needs to tell them what they find, and that's where the forensics team come in. The IT department, well, you know, there wouldn't be any work for either of us if there was no network connection to the outside world. You know, if it just happened inside in one computer in one room, well, there's not really a lot of work for us. But what if it's something online? What if it's some online problem? And more importantly, lately, the forensic side of it is pushing towards more of a digital media investigator as well, looking at open source intelligence, looking at online investigations, looking at how people interact online. So you look at things like Facebook accounts, you look at Twitter, you look at WhatsApp, you look at how these people interact with each other. And that's a very interesting field. And I must be honest, I've been looking at some OSINT, as they call it, open source intelligence. And I really think that if I was starting over again, you know, if I was to be that horrible little person I was as a teenager, OSINT is where I'd go, definitely. There's a lot of valuable information out there that could be used for investigation purposes, could be used for fraud detection, could be used in divorces. You know, there's a lot of work out there in that field. So just because the forensic side of it is, you know, digging into things, digging things apart, the online and cloud side of it is starting to become more prevalent, more important in examinations. And again, do we look at how artificial intelligence could be set loose on things like Twitter and Facebook and start looking for the bad guys, which we can either confirm or deny might be happening already. And another aspect of that is back a couple of years ago, where they were using these computer generated animated faces of, you know, allegedly young girls as a sort of honeypots to trap in bad guys. It's a wonderful field. I think there's plenty of going for us. Who we got in the chat? Somebody, Sean, is studying cybersecurity with the Open University, but digital forensics is very interesting. Yeah, there is an opportunity for, say, for both fields to interact as well. Yeah, cybersecurity is sometimes a foot in the door. And if you're in an organization, well, maybe you want to express your interest in forensics as well, because any incident response needs somebody that understands forensics. So, you know, even as a security team, you should really have a forensic specialist on your security team that knows how to preserve evidence, that knows how to preserve data, so that when you've completed your security response, there can be a forensic response as well, and that can be passed to the relevant authorities should the need be. So yeah, Sean, that's a great field to be in. I've got this method I like to share with people. This route I think people should take. And I've always said to my students, the ones that are doing the forensics degree, I don't want you doing a master's in forensics. You already know a good deal of forensics by doing your degree. Do a master's in security. And I say to the security students, don't do a master's in security, come and do a master's in forensics, because then you'll have an understanding of both fields and you'll be able to apply yourself, and it makes you a lot more employable. So that's definitely a piece of advice out there for people that are studying at the moment, or thinking of studying in this field. Don't go forensics all the way. Don't go security all the way. Mix it up a little. Make sure you've got a broad understanding. It makes you far more employable. Okay, Ian. Yeah, the reward, the sense of helping people in society, it all comes down to one thing, Ian. It's really straightforward and simple. I'm Batman. And I just put it out there. You'll never see me and Batman in the same room. Just putting it out there. But yeah, there is great pleasure to come from knowing you've done the right thing, knowing you've served your community, knowing you've served your country. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that I wore a uniform. I'm very proud of the fact that I put bad people away. I'm very proud of the fact that I helped that guy get his photographs back. I've done something useful. Yeah? And if I made money doing it, that's even more fun. But I've done something useful. And, you know, I'll be honest, I've never gone to work. Every job I've had, I've loved. Even from when I was a part-time butcher's boy when I was in school, I loved that. All the way up to what we do now. I really love my job. I get paid for what I enjoy doing. And that's got to be the ultimate goal in life. Okay, occasionally I have a bad day, but not very often nowadays. What is an interesting one? GDPR. Gee, I love those initials. Yeah. GDPR is a problem. Not so much for work, but just for the paperwork it creates, for the problems that creates. It doesn't stop you from doing your job. It just makes your job so much more difficult. If you download a mobile phone and you store that data, is it part of a criminal investigation? Yes, well, it's stored for 7 years or whatever the statute is on that crime. But what if it was a witness's phone you looked at and you download his phone? What do you do about the information then? You know, oh, well, you got to delete it as soon as possible. Yeah, but what if we need it? When do you delete it? Who tells you when to delete it? Have you got a system that automatically deletes it? And that is I tell you what, there's an opportunity for people to make money there. Is to develop a system that automatically deletes unwanted evidence, evidential files at a given time. But what happens if you get it wrong? What happens if you delete the evidential files that are required? Yeah, I was really lucky in the time that I set up the mobile phone lab to the time I left. Well, from when we went operational effectively to when I left was just under 7 years. And 7 years, as they say, when they start deleting things. So all the records for that lab were held on a server. And when I walked out the door, one of the last things I said to my former boss was, GDPR data on that server, happy Christmas, and off I went. So I don't know what happened with that, and I will not have that conversation with my former boss because I liked him too much and I don't want to upset him. But yeah, GDPR can really cause us problems, but it causes everybody problems in every field of work. Anybody that's got data has got a problem. It's as simple as that. Cool, that was a dark one, wasn't it? Any more for any more? Oh, it's gone quiet. Oh, hold on. The boss has arrived on screen. Hi, Ali. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Great. Guys, if nobody else has got anything for me, I think we should pull the plug now because I'm conscious of the fact that I'm rambling on. I love rambling on. I would stay here till midnight, but I don't think a lot of people want to stay till midnight. If anybody needs to get in touch, my email details, easy enough to find, srichards5@glos.ac.uk. Search me on the Gloucester website, I'll arrive on there. Yeah, it's Stuart Richards. Just look for a picture of a really attractive digital forensic examiner and you've got the right person then. It's as simple as that. So I'll say thank you to everybody. And then I'll hand back to one of the organising team so they can close down. But I just want to say thank you, everybody. Some interesting questions, and I've enjoyed myself. You can't not enjoy yourself when it's a subject that you love. So thank you, everybody, and I'll hand back over to whoever's taking over from the control room. Thank you ever so much.
All right. So thank you once again for giving us a very interesting talk on the difference between how cyber forensics is portrayed in the media and how things are on the ground. So, and thank you for all the questions that the audience have submitted. They are certainly quite insightful, and it was a joy to listen to Stu's responses to them. So thanks again for attending, and we always have monthly webinar talks set up, so be sure to check it out on our BCS website. So with that said, thanks again for attending and hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Bye.
Thanks, Thomas.
Hey, Stu, you still there?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to make this thing work. I like this interface. It's a very nice interface. I've never used this one before, this go-to thing. Yeah, I really like it. It takes a bit of getting used to. Right, so who's actually got control of this at the moment now? Because
It's
it
you.
shows me in control, but am I in control or what? I have no idea
You
what's
are
going
in
on.
control.
I'm in control. Now we're in trouble. I really enjoyed that, guys. It was fun.
Nice.
Fabulous talk, Stuart. Great.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good at talking. I'm not much good at doing anything, but I'm pretty good at talking.
Don't sell yourself short.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was nice to see my boss turning up as well, too, which is a bit worrying.
They're all keeping an eye on you, are they?
Say again?
They're all keeping an eye on you.
Yeah, well, I saw Ali's name in the list. I thought, all right, and then he said hello. I thought, oh dear, that's just it. That's just him letting me know that he was there. I suspect he'll be talking to me tomorrow. No, I mean, and we had some of my former students in there as well, which is good. It's nice to see people getting involved, sort of extracurricular. It really does make. But you know, this is the industry we're in, though, isn't it, folks? You know, we need to be able to talk, to share, to interact, because somebody might have an idea. Let's say artificial intelligence, which isn't really my field, but somebody might have a really good idea on AI, and somebody else might have a really good idea on, I know, image recognition, and somebody else might have a really good idea on methods of data compression, or what. All different fields, but they're all really relevant, aren't they?
Yeah, that's true.
It'd be nice if we can push it around. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that, but I think it's time now for me to run off and get a cup of coffee.
It's rather interesting what you were saying about difficulties using forensics on Macs.
Oh, I hate Macs with a passion.
Yeah. But does that mean there's an opportunity for the malcreants to conduct their operations on Macs and give them better protection against being?
Yeah, it's like the iPhone, and I mean the iPhone is super secure until it's not. You know, and perfectly honest, if I was a criminal, I'd use an iPhone. But then again, you've got a super encrypted Android phone that'll do much more, but because it's Android, there's many more people trying to break into it open source. So I default to iPhones because, you know, it's a good criminal phone. Not that I've got anything to hide, but, you know, it stops the wife from looking at what's going on, doesn't it? But yeah, Macs themselves, though, they're so beautifully made. I love them as a piece of technology. I just hate them as a forensic examiner. Yeah. I would dearly love to have a Mac sat here on my desk, but it doesn't do what I want it to do.
Is it something function of the actual machine itself, or is it just that people haven't produced the forensic software to you know, gain evidence from them?
Yeah, I think that's really what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Linux system, and you know, we can kind of work with it, but nobody put effort into looking at Macs because everybody bought PCs. It's the same old argument as I suspect, Phil, you're of the age where you'll remember the Betamax was a much better video system than VHS. But all the money was thrown at Betamax. It was thrown at VHS, not at Betamax, because VHS was being used for the home porn industry. So, you know, everybody went after that because that's what it was. Nobody thought, if the two had run at parallel, Betamax was a much better system. And we know Macs are really good bits of kit, but PCs outsell them everywhere, don't they? So, and again, if you're going to develop software, are you going to develop software that people can use on hundreds of thousands of machines, or are you going to use develop software they're going to use on a handful of machines? And then you become part of a very small pool of people working on it, so you've got to have a very good product and spend a lot on development to try and get any recoup from it. Whereas if you're working on Windows, you can write a little bit of stuff and sell it to a lot of people. So,
yeah.
But I'm desperately in need of a Mac expert, that's for sure. Oh, as if by magic, my waitress appears. That's what I want to see. Cup of coffee arrives. Yeah. So Phil, if you know anybody that's really good at Macs, yeah, I'm always up for anybody that's got anything to do with Macs. Anybody got any hints?
Yeah, I'm afraid I've no experience of Macs at all, really.
No, where to put the chisel, where to hit it with a hammer, all that sort of stuff is all very important. Yeah, I say Macs, like, given the right equipment, I could examine a Mac, but I'd have to ask for the right equipment, and I'd have to really be in the mood for it. I wouldn't want to do it just for fun. Whereas PCs, I do it for fun. I love ripping PCs apart. So.
Hey, speaking of which, have you got? Do you still have contact with Michael Brown?
I haven't spoken to Michael for ages, and I wish we need to get in touch with him. Actually, I need to talk to Mike, try and convince him to come home.
Yeah, I mean he is good with Macs.
Yeah, well, for the short time that he was there with me, he was brilliant with them. But,
yeah, try getting.
Yeah, he needs to come back to us. I miss him terribly as well. Not as much as I miss you, Tom, but I miss him terribly.
No, good enough.
Oh dear. Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised by the way this software works, because I was expecting it to be a little bit lumpy. I can't remember what the one we used in the Isle of Wight was, but I know it wasn't this one. But this is a similar system, but this is very nice. I like this. Very nice indeed. We'll have to be looking to see if I can use this for some of the other stuff I'm doing. Yeah. Might be pinching this idea off you, Phil. It's a nice setup.
Yeah, I would say so. So with that said, everyone, so once again, thanks for stepping in, Stu. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
So yeah, it was great meeting you as well. So with that said, let's call it a day then.
Sorry, can I just ask Thomas a question?
Sure.
Thomas, just a reminder about the committee meeting next week.
Yes.
Presumably that's on.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. All right. Yeah, I'll see you when I see you then, Philip.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks, Stu. Keep in touch.
Yeah.
Have a good evening,
Awesome.
everyone. 1, 2, 3.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.